Welcome to Before They Change the World, where we explore the minds, ideas, and dreams of exceptional students working on inspiring projects before they change the world. This episode is hosted by me, David, and I speak with Ege, who's a computer science master student at ETH Zurich. Next to his studies, Ege started Appeal, a project that uses AI to help YouTubers create better titles and thumbnails for their videos. We talk about the YouTube ecosystem today, about how Appeal works and the struggles of starting a company, the future of AI-assisted marketing, his journey from Turkey to Zurich, and his studies of CS at ETH, among many others. This episode is packed with valuable insights and lessons, so I'm sure you'll get a lot from it. I wanted to start off with the story of how we met, which is quite interesting actually. I think I was browsing the SPH Slack, which is this Slack workspace where all these student project house projects are. And I think I saw a message about your project, Appeal, which we'll get to in a second. And since I have a YouTube channel, I reached out to you and I said, I have a YouTube channel, check it out. Maybe we can talk about Appeal and how I could be a test user for the product that you're building. And then you said, yeah, sure, sounds good. Then we met up and you told me a bit more about Appeal. And that was a very interesting conversation. So I thought we could maybe have a very similar conversation about what Appeal is about right now to introduce it to our listeners.
Sure. So Appeal is basically a project that we started roughly a year ago, in September 2021. Back then I was already kind of hunting for startup ideas to go into the space to have this experience. And one morning I came up with the idea that I told you about, that is to help YouTubers. Mm-hmm. And basically the thing I noticed is this. YouTube is obviously super big by now. Yeah. It's about to overtake US cable TV viewership, which is just like ridiculous. Wow. Every day, 1 billion hours of video is being watched on YouTube. And there are only 7 billion people or something, or 8 billion, right? So like, it's insane. It's insane. Yeah. And there are a lot of people who have their own YouTube channel and regularly produce content and want to grow their channel, be successful. Some for monetary reasons, some for other reasons. And there's this big discrepancy between the amount of time spent on the actual video and what actually brings the viewership. And it's like this, you're a YouTuber yourself, you'll know how much time you spent on an average video. Mm-hmm. I would guess it's anywhere between 10 hours to way more.
Yeah, sometimes for sure. The editing being like the biggest chunk usually.
Yeah, exactly. And after all this laborious work, you could have produced a very high quality video, very, very, very captivating. However, if you don't pick a good title and a good thumbnail for this video, no one will actually have the chance to start watching it. No one will give it a chance. No. And how much time do you spend on the title and the thumbnail?
Maximum 1 hour.
Okay, that's still good. Like,
it's still good because I know how important it is.
Yeah. Yeah, when I talk to more seasoned YouTubers, they also appreciate the importance of it. Mm-hmm. It's basically goes back to the old saying, "Don't judge a book by its cover," but it's impossible, you know. When you're a YouTube user, when you go on YouTube to spend,
just can't help it. I mean,
no,
it's like you're just following your gut. When you click on something, you're just
yeah, exactly. Like you have 20 options, maybe 40, 50 options. Yeah. You just click on one. And so it's really crucial. Actually, some very big YouTubers have reported that changing their title and thumbnail after having published the video to something that makes more sense in hindsight, mm-hmm. boosted their views by up to 10 times. Wow. 10 times, 10 times as many views for the same amount of work that you put in. It's like they pay 10 times more.
It's crazy. And I mean, this explains why I see big YouTubers on Instagram polling their users on Instagram stories about what thumbnail they prefer. I see very big YouTubers as well testing different thumbnails. Like I see a thumbnail changing constantly for the same video already when it's been uploaded. And there's also, I recently heard a podcast with Colin and Samir, who are two creators that talk about the creator economy. And they're talking about hiring a person specifically dedicated to like title and thumbnail design.
Yeah, but it does make sense because there's so much potential. It's so critical to the overall success of each and every video. Yeah. And you gave already some examples of how it's being done today. people mostly rely on their intuition and expertise. Obviously, when you start YouTube, you don't have any idea what you're doing, but with time you get more experience, and then you get better at choosing titles and thumbnails that appeal to your audience. But for most, like 99% of YouTubers, it's not the case. They're not that experienced. And even if you are very experienced, taste is subjective. Something that looks good to you, a title that you would think, oh, this is like such a nice title, may not necessarily correspond to the taste of your audience. You know, as one person, you can't really know this. What would be the most optimal title and thumbnail that would attract the biggest crowd? Yeah. So I studied computer science for my bachelor's degree. I'm still studying computer science for my master's degree, and I'm very much into AI and machine learning and this kind of stuff. And one thing I know how to do is to leverage large amounts of data. And so for this project that we are introducing now, the idea is to actually download millions, tens of millions of YouTube videos, see how many views each one of them gets, see the title and thumbnail, see which channel produced it, and so on. And based on this, build an algorithm that can automatically tell you how good your choice of title and thumbnail will be. Right. And then this takes most of the work away. You can just do your regular creative process. You can come up with, let's say, 5 titles, 10 titles that you think would be good. You can create a thumbnail using an editing tool. There you also do some design decisions. For example, if you have text in the thumbnail, how big it's going to be, which font, which color, placement, and so on. Any other design elements also have degrees of freedom, and you can alter this and potentially produce 50 different thumbnails, right? And then you can give everything, all of these that you produce to the algorithm, and it will rank every title thumbnail combination for you, and then tell you, use this because this will give you the most amount of viewership. Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's basically appeal in a nutshell, right?
Exactly.
It's pretty straightforward when you explain it like this, but actually, it's quite hard when you get to the details of how to implement such a thing, right? Because there's so many things that go behind the views of a video, right? It's probably not only the title and the thumbnail.
No.
It's the creator, it's the marketing that they've done outside, it's how many links are outside of YouTube that are pointing to that video. So how do you get around that actually? How do you get around the problem being so complex and trying to compress it down to using a title and a thumbnail to do this very complex prediction of views?
So as you said, it's a very complex problem, and the way I like to approach complex problems in general in life is to basically make a lot of simplifying assumptions at the beginning and then remove them as I go. For this project, what we've done is, as you said, for example, there are these outside links that are being pointed to the video. There might be some other considerations, like, for example, significant world events that might be happening that you might also want to model. Right. That it all depends on the topic of the video.
I mean, the Squid Game video, for instance. If you were to post it now, it would look very different, right?
Exactly. What we have done in the beginning is, of course, we don't only look at the title and the thumbnail, but we also ask you, what's your channel? And if we know which channel will be posting this video, while we don't know every single detail about the landscape of that particular topic on YouTube and so on, just by looking at the performances of the previous videos of that channel, we can get a pretty good estimation of the typical viewership of that channel, what works for them, like what they like to watch, and this is what we condition on basically. Earlier we were discussing that in order to get 80% of the results, you have to put in 20% of the work. And I've noticed that this is actually the correct way to approach problems in the real world, as opposed to academia, for example.
Right.
At ETH, there's the education here is very theoretically minded. You are kind of being trained to understand a problem and immediately start thinking about how to solve it optimally. But I've made the experience that this is not at all how things work in the real world. That you will not get anywhere, and you have to start small and build your way up. And while the system is already quite good in the general outline that I described, one can of course build up on it even further to get even more performance.
Yeah. So I remember quite vividly when we met, which was a few months ago, and at that point you had a small demo online that you showed me. And I think we did a test with one of my videos as well, where we, at that point, I think it was only using title.
Yes, that's
right?
true. Yeah.
And it did predict like a pretty sensible number. And it was, you basically queried it, you gave it the title and you asked it for how many views in an X amount of days, right? How has it changed since then? Or does it work pretty much the same?
So the basic idea is still the same. Yeah. The big addition we made is that now not only the title is considered, but also the thumbnail. Oh, no. Okay. Of course, already intuitively you can sense that the thumbnail is somehow more important than the title, because humans are like very visual creatures in the way that we perceive the world. You know, when you go on YouTube and you are bombarded with recommendations. And at first you only see thumbnails basically. Yes, there are titles, but your brain simply doesn't register them. Or at least that's my belief.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's crucial to also look at the thumbnails, and in the meantime, that's also what we have added to the algorithm.
Nice.
Yeah, it's super challenging, of course, but also exciting.
Yeah. How easy is it to get training data from YouTube? And what is publicly available and what isn't?
Right. So actually, what's publicly available is nothing more than what you can already see as a regular YouTube user when you go on YouTube. So you know, when you go on a certain channel, for example, you can see all their videos. If you click on a video, you can see all the comments, how many views it got, how many likes. You used to be able to see dislikes also. And YouTube actually provides an API, an application programming interface. So you can actually write computer programs that ask the YouTube database for this kind of information to get it programmatically. Okay.
And it's free? Like you can do as many queries as you want?
You can't do as many queries as you want, but you can do a substantial amount of queries. Okay. It's limited to, they have this budget system. Basically, depending on how you query, you can maximize the number of videos you get, but then you're not going to necessarily get the type of videos that you want. So for us, for example, in the beginning, we were able to actually crawl like over 100,000 videos a day. Wow. Yeah, so 100,000 a day quickly becomes millions over the course of a couple months. And you can also ask them to extend this quota, like increase it. And so now technically we could also do actually over 1 million a day.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, when you started doing this, what kind of videos were you targeting? Were you going for very popular videos or any kind of video? Yeah.
So for us, we wanted to create a product that is as generally applicable as possible. We did not want to focus on a specific niche. That being said, I think rather not focusing on super big channels is actually smarter from a business point of view, because smaller channels will probably need this service more than bigger channels. Like in the extreme case, the biggest channels, as you say, they can already hire their own guy. And so now I still maintain that the general idea behind our approach is more powerful than a single human being. But now you actually, from a business standpoint, your offer has to be better than one guy who's working on this full time. Whereas if you sell the same product to, let's say, you who's working on this alone, and you spend like an hour, per video, now suddenly the product doesn't have to be as good for it to be sensible to you to buy it.
Right. Because so there's a few metrics also that we talked about. I think when you showed it to me, it was predicting views. But I think we discussed that the click-through rate was kind of one of the most important metrics, right?
Definitely.
Can you explain what that is and if you've implemented that?
Of course. Yeah. So the click-through rate is a metric that's associated with every video. It's basically the answer to this question. Out of all the people that YouTube has recommended your video to, how many have actually clicked on the video and started watching it? Even if they stop watching after 2 seconds, if they have clicked, it counts as them having clicked. Okay. So for example, if I'm a user and I'm subscribed to your channel, whenever you post a new video, it will actually show up on my feed. Yeah. And once it shows up, if I click, then YouTube will actually keep track of that. If I don't click, it will also keep track of that. So for example, if you have a click-through rate of 5%, that means out of 100 people that YouTube has recommended your video to, 5 will click. So intuitively, you want this number to be as large as possible. However, it is very hard to interpret also, because the audience that your video is being suggested to changes over time, right? So in the beginning, for example, like if the video is super new, you just published it, most of the people will be your own subscribers who are likelier to click because they're already your subscriber, right? So this number tends to fall over time. And actually, it being high could be an indicator that the video did not do so well because it did not end up getting recommended to people outside your subscribers.
That's so true. I mean, I was listening to a podcast recently as well, and a big YouTuber mentioned some of their figures, like 3.5%, and I was like, whoa, some of my videos have like 8%. And I thought, wow, I must be doing much better in my thumbnails, but actually it just means that it wasn't pumped out to new users as much, probably.
Exactly. So metrics like this, like click-through rate, there's also other stuff, like average view duration. That one's more straightforward. Basically, like what percentage of the entire video was consumed on average. These metrics, while they're super interesting to also work with, they are unfortunately private. You can't just ask for this data without the consent of the producer. So then you can go two ways. You can either say, okay, this data, while it's valuable, I can't use it. It's hard to get my hands on, so I'm not gonna depend on this data. I'm gonna build a system that doesn't use this data. Then you can, this is the route that we went. You can download like very large amounts of data and hope that you're in the big data regime and that you can learn enough from it. We can go the alternative way. That's actually what one competitor did in the beginning. You can reach out to individual YouTubers and ask for their consent to actually download this data, and they will actually give you the consent. At the end, you will get a much smaller data set, like 100 times smaller, 1,000 times smaller. But from each consenting channel, you'll get much more data. It's in the beginning, we chose the first approach. So the benefit is that the creator sharing that data will probably also be able to benefit more from your tool. Like if you give it more information. Yes, exactly. If you actually design a system that exploits that information, then for sure. Okay. So since you started Appeal, how do you? I assume you watch quite a lot of YouTube. Has your view on YouTube changed, or are you now seeing yourself using YouTube in a different way, or like paying attention to these little details? Yeah, for sure it has changed a lot. It's kind of weird. There was a time where every time I went onto YouTube after like a day's work to relax, it would instead remind me of work again, you know. So that was not so nice. But indeed, you start noticing some things that that you wouldn't pay attention to before. So, for example, when a viral video is being recommended to me, that's like that has something unusual about it. Like I tend to notice it. Like, this guy did something interesting like this, and it ended up being successful. You know, I would also actually start spending a lot of time on social media forums on YouTube, where like a lot of YouTubers hang out and ask questions. You know, just to get to know the field better, because this is the people that we cater to in the end. But I think I've kept a healthy relationship. Like somehow I'm still able to be in my personal mind space when I'm browsing YouTube for personal reasons. Okay. So you met me, at least. I'm a very small YouTuber. Did you meet other YouTubers, people producing? Yeah, so unfortunately for us, like no one in the founding team really had any significant YouTubers that they knew. Besides you, for example, we've met with Nicole Davidson, which I know that you know. You produced a video together, actually. Yeah, exactly. That was really cool. Other than that, I actually had one or two friends who did YouTube, but like in Turkey, and I think that's it. So like maybe top 5 different YouTubers that we talked to in person. How do you see Appeal or this technology being used in several years from now? Oof, that's such a good question. This is actually the part that I'm most excited about. Not the particular instantiation of this idea, but that it's so pervasive, like that you can use it everywhere. Now, if you take a step back and look again at what we've just talked about, it's actually somehow an instance of data-driven digital marketing. So it might be a counterintuitive way of looking at it, but in some way, when you produce a YouTube video, that's the product that you're trying to sell, and the title and the thumbnail is your marketing strategy for that product. This is just a way of interpreting it. The wrapping around the video. Exactly. It's the wrapping around, because it's not the title and the thumbnail that matters at the end. It's just you want them to watch the video itself, right? So this is just it's like an ad in some sense, you know, the title and thumbnail. Actually, the YouTube homepage is just like a big ad board. Exactly. Each channel saying, here, come to my channel, watch my video, you know? And if you start viewing it this way, then you start seeing parallels instantly in other social media platforms.
Yeah.
Like for example, on Instagram, there each post itself is an ad for the channel.
Yeah.
Right? When you start liking the posts, then you start following the channel, and then the channel grows and is successful, and then so for example, you can apply the same technology there. You could try to train an AI algorithm that will tell you which photo will get the most likes, you know? And the same for Twitter. Like you could try to train an algorithm that will tell you which tweet will get the most interactions. And you can even build up on it beyond, like on LinkedIn, for example. What kind of job posting should you create so that you can attract the best talent? Right. You know? So these are all advertising questions. This is marketing. This is marketing, and it's been traditionally done by marketing people. But now, since everything is becoming so digitalized, big corporations that host these services actually start sharing the data with public. We are able to produce alternative approaches that leverage the data, that you can start making these decisions based on data and not on intuition. Because before, like if you go 5 years ago, it's all expert intuition. Still 99% of this industry is based on intuition. You know, you will have an expert marketing person that will tell you we have to do it this way. I don't know why, but you know, it's what my gut feeling tells me. Yeah, exactly. So this idea, I think, will be used much more extensively. This is just the like baby footsteps. This was like a nice attempt. We will see much more of this in the future.
So related to this, have you heard about a concept called silicon sampling?
No.
No? Okay. It's basically the overarching concept that you were touching on right now, where you do polls, but on like a machine. So a machine is going to basically replicate what a certain society would reply to a poll, right? So if you ask like, I have this campaign, would you vote for this or that, or would you? Basically, you can just query a machine to basically be the average human, or to answer the statistics it has learned from previous behavioral studies on humans. And yeah, it feels like all these things that you were talking about, all these examples for Instagram, for Twitter, for LinkedIn, there's probably tools that are being developed at the moment for all those specific use cases. But yeah, in the end, it comes down to machine learning applied to predicting statistics of humans. Like
exactly.
Yeah, and it kind of is very confronting that we're so predictable in a way, right? But this is one side of the coin, though, right? This is the prediction side. What about the generation side? Right? One thing is that a machine learning model tells you which of the images you're giving it is more effective for a certain thing. The other one is that it straight up comes up with an image, right? Or with a title or something. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's definitely fascinating. In fact, this was the original idea back in September, like a year ago, that maybe the algorithm could just generate the right title and thumbnail, and then we don't have to deal with it at all. You know, it's super interesting. And one thing that I like so much about it is that it synergizes with what we've just discussed. So unlike predicting something, which is very optimization focused, generating things is not really like the quality of it is not easily measurable. Like for example, when you look at image generation papers all the way from 2014 until today, there is still not many nice metrics by which researchers can judge the quality of the algorithms that they produce. Like for example, the image generation algorithms that are so popular today, it's really not easy to judge, like quantify exactly how good it is. 5 years ago, for example, what researchers did was literally just to look at the images and say, these look realistic, it's good, you know? So, as you said, it's two sides of the coin, and you need both of these systems. One that's predicting of what we've just discussed, and the other that's generating. Right. Because what you can do is then you can couple them. Right. You can use the generator like a creative process to generate, you know, tens of thousands, for example. Right. You know, and then you can use the predictive algorithm to make a prediction for each of these generations, and then you can take the best one. Right. Yeah. So this synergy is super exciting, and somehow I feel it hasn't been explored in much detail. But I think this is where it's going. to leverage generative algorithms for quantifiable goals, for commercial purposes or other purposes.
Yeah. So I want to go back to Appeal. You guys started September 2021?
Yeah.
So September last year. And now you told me that you were thinking about becoming a company, right? Like starting to productize this a bit more. But you've also told me that there's been some struggles with that. And since I think quite a lot of our listeners are people that are also very interested in starting teams and starting companies, businesses, maybe you can share some of the knowledge, some of the things that you've learned about the difficult process that it is to actually start a company, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I have experienced a few lessons that are already out there, actually. Mm-hmm. But some lessons in life, for some people, you can't hear it from someone else. Like you have to live it yourself, and then come to the conclusion. I hope what I say now actually helps some people not make the same mistake. It could be considered a mistake. So in our case, it was two things. People always say you should decide the division of labor, the division of responsibilities, and also the division of reward, like what everybody gets, as early as possible. For reasons that seemed meaningful to me at the time, I decided to postpone that discussion until late, and I think that was a big mistake. Also, people say you should not go into a professional relationship with your friend. And I also did the opposite. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's a mistake, but you know, it does have its own caveats, which I've experienced. Right. So in our case, after 10-11 months of hard work, we finally got to a point where kind of everything was coming together. We could actually put the service online, start out in the real world, and afterwards maybe even get payments and so on. Mm-hmm. And so we had to now form a company for this, right? So we actually postponed it almost as late as possible. Yeah. And then it came out that people in the founding team had like vastly different expectations about the responsibilities, roles, and the reward that each member should get. Right. And like the discussion had been delayed for so long that people, like many things had happened too long ago that you can't even have an objective discussion about it, because no one actually takes note of what everybody did. So everyone kind of has their own narrative about how things have played out, and based on this, everyone has their own expectations. And in our case, it became impossible to reconcile. Right. And so the only thing that was feasible was to split, and then everybody pursues their own way. Okay. So in my case, for example, in the last year, I had spent so much time on this already that I actually fell back on my studies. Uh-huh. And it's also kind of expensive to live in Switzerland. Yeah. Right. So I do need to have the financial pressure to graduate at some point, make some money. Yeah. So for me personally, I decided to actually pause for now, focus more on my studies and other projects, also take a step back, kind of try to see it in the bigger picture, because it's also really easy to lose yourself in it. Right. When you're really passionate about something, it's really easy to lose the bigger picture and just focus entirely on this, as if you are a child playing your favorite game, basically. But when I take a step back and I look at what I have done, I'm 24. I have yet to enter into the industry, very fresh, have no experience. This is my first real experience in the world. Learned a lot, and I'm happy with it. I think I will have other opportunities in life where I will take this experience and build up on it. So for me, it is somehow a chapter closing right about now. But it's a chapter that I look back on very fondly. Okay,
that's super nice. So Appeal is still going to continue running, right?
Yes, as far as I know.
And you're deciding to take a pause or take a breather from it to prioritize your studies, because you're still young and have to sustain yourself in some way. I can relate to that as well. And do you consider maybe at some point going back to Appeal, or how do you see that?
So it's definitely possible. I'm not ruling out anything. Anything can happen in life.
Yeah.
This idea of silicon sampling that we discussed, I'm especially fascinated by this. So I can totally see myself going back to it in one form or another. For example, maybe not YouTube, but something else, or maybe not social media, but something else. You know, you never know. But to come back to the previous question of like what could be some takeaways, just to summarize again for the viewers. I can only say, if you can, don't try this with a friend, especially if it's going to be a professional relationship. If you can, avoid it. If you can't, it's not the end of the world. And yes, try to clarify these things as early as possible. But of course, it's also tricky because if no work has been done, then
there's no grounds to discuss.
Exactly. So just think about this. You know, every case is different. I know many people will hear this and think, but
we're not gonna have that.
I don't buy it. You know, I'm gonna try it my way. Okay, try it your way. Hopefully, it works better. But this would be main takeaways for me that I will carry with myself.
So you're saying that starting something with a friend is not the best thing, but I guess there's also some benefits.
For sure.
So maybe at the start you guys moved fast because you knew each other a bit better, right?
For sure. I think the biggest benefit is that it's like more fun. And that you since you know each other better, you're also able to motivate each other. And for example, we have the saying in Turkish, while one hand cannot make a sound, two hands make a clap.
Nice.
You know, so two is somehow bigger than 1 + 1 in this sense, especially if you're friends. So that's why it's not a clear-cut decision. It depends a lot on the case. I'm also not saying that I regret it. It's very complicated. It's also both sides have to be mature enough to be able to separate the friendship relationship from the business relationship.
Right.
And this is harder than it sounds.
No, for sure. I can imagine. So, we've spoken a bit about some of the challenges of Appeal, and I wanted to kind of ask you how you think your education as a computer science student at ETH has helped you in that, or if it came really from self-taught skills.
It's a good question. No, I think it has undoubtedly helped, but not as much as you would think. It's really interesting. I think earlier we already mentioned that, in my opinion, the education we get as computer scientists at least is quite theoretical. For example, there are tons of courses on machine learning, but it's always like mathematically oriented. Like you are taught to kind of not only come up with an idea, but also kind of try to reason about why it makes sense and even try to prove it if you can, which is really difficult with machine learning. But so when we decided to try something like this, basically the only thing we knew was how to build the model. We didn't know how to get the data. We didn't know how to host the model online. We didn't know how to create a web application with a nice user interface, for example, where you know, which is like just as important. Like if you don't have those things, you lost from the beginning. It could have been the other way around. For example, I could not have attended such a theoretical school, but something more applied, and then I would have all these other things in my toolbox. But maybe I would not have been able to build the model in the first place. And of course, there are like some very exceptional people who already somehow have both kinds of expertise, like being self-taught plus attending this kind of having this kind of education. But most people are not like that, so you have to make one choice. I think in hindsight, it was the right choice for me to have attended this kind of school, having this kind of education, because it is like you can still add those things later, like building a website, learning how to host, and all the other things that you have to wrap around your actual product. All those things can be learned, or in some case you can actually hire someone to do it for you, because this knowledge is more widespread. Whereas the other kind of like core machine learning knowledge is harder to obtain, especially if you want to get it right.
Okay. So now that we're on the topic of your education here at ETH, I'm curious. You grew up in Turkey, right? How did you decide to come to ETH Zurich, out of all places, where the bachelor's is taught in German?
It was actually very fortunate. I think everyone's life is like just actually dictated by a sequence of fortunate and unfortunate events. I don't think we have that much control. But anyways, to come back to the question, so in Turkey, when you finish middle school, you go into this national exam. Basically, your performance over the last 8 years doesn't matter. It's this one exam, maybe two, that you take at the end of the year, and your result there entirely determines what kind of high school you can go to. And if you want to get a good education, you want to score really high on these tests. Yeah. And so basically the entire end of middle school education is kind of focused around trying to get as good as possible at these tests. You just care about the test, nothing else. It gets kind of crazy. Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to get a good score, and then I could go into almost any school I want, not all. Some were still too high. But one of these schools was a German high school. German high school, what that basically means is it's a high school that's in Turkey, that is connected to both the Ministry of Education in Turkey and in Germany. Wow. And so when you attend that, it's as if you're studying in a German high school and a Turkish high school at the same time. At the end, you get two diplomas, a Turkish diploma and a German diploma.
What? Wow.
Yeah. And since it's a German high school, obviously you're supposed to speak German. Yeah. But since it's Turkey, nobody speaks German. So there's an extra year in the beginning where you just learn German.
Just German?
Yes.
That whole year?
Yes.
No other courses?
Like you have courses like physics, but then in physics you just learn the German versions of things like velocity, you know. Yeah, it's like or like in chemistry you learn the German word for Bunsen burner, you know. It's everything is centered around German. You have two different German teachers, over 20 hours of German a week.
Jesus.
Yeah, and then once that year is over, then you can actually start with the high school education.
Wow. Wait, so at what age did you finish high school then? Is it like in Italy, a bit later than in Spain?
Yes, I finished I think when I was 19 or almost 19.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But why? Was it just a really good high school? Or was the education level, once you were in the high school, very good and that's why you decided to basically spend that 1 year doing German? Or are you just really passionate about the German language?
No, I'm not exceptionally passionate about German. The education is really good. Yeah. It also allows you to obtain higher education in the DACH region, so Germany, Austria, Switzerland. Because you have a German high school diploma, then you can go to these places to get a university education. And there are many universities there that are like way higher quality than in Turkey. Also, it's much less competitive to get into the school actually. Like in Turkey, to get into the top university, which is like maybe not even top 300 in the rankings, it's insanely difficult. You are competing against like over 1 million students. But I got into ETH like not even trying basically.
When it's like much better, right?
Exactly. Yeah, like ETH in particular was because first of all I could get in, like the bar was low because they do the selection actually afterwards in the first year by being really tough.
Right.
And yeah, it's just like by far the best school I could attend compared to the ones in Germany. So I thought, why not?
Awesome. So yeah, you just touched on a point that I wanna highlight, which is that the selection is done after you get into ETH. So how was that experience for you?
Oof, it was very difficult. It was one of the toughest periods of my life, especially being so young and inexperienced.
With not a lot of coding background, right?
Actually not at all. Like once I started studying here, I saw like there were so many people who actually started coding when they were teenagers and like already competed in Olympiads, have their own websites and so on. Yeah. And like I know a little bit of C, you know, that like only experience I had was in the summer beforehand, or like in the spring, the summer. I thought, okay, like this is gonna probably be useful. Let me like try to learn it a little bit, and I went to this online education platform called EDX. Maybe some viewers might be familiar. There was this course called CS50. I did a couple of weeks of that, and that was it basically. Okay. I had to study so hard in that first year, and I was not a hardworking person. Like I would like study a regular amount before that. As I said, it was not that hard to get into the ETH in the first place. So that was like going into the military for me, I could say. Like you have to be really resilient. You have to, be okay with not getting things easily. You have to be okay with so many people being better than you because of their prior experience. And you just have to push and hold on and hope it will work out.
Was there a point where you were not even sure you would be able to stay at ETH? Or was it not? Okay, it wasn't that bad.
For many of my friends had these kinds of doubts.
Yeah.
But I had these doubts about myself before deciding to come here. Okay. And after I made the decision, before making the decision, I became certain that I am able to do it, that I am confident in my ability to succeed. Yeah. Otherwise, I would not have even come here.
Yeah. Okay. So was there like a particular course that was just brutal or very hard? And what kind of work ethic did you develop in your first year?
Yeah, especially the first semester, we had 2 courses that were insanely difficult. One of them was algorithms and data structures, and the other one was discrete mathematics. The others were also not easy, but these were like especially brutal, especially the algorithms one, where if you don't have any kind of background, if you don't even know how to code, first of all, you have to know how to program. You have to learn to think in an algorithmic way. You have to have the right attitude to approach problems, and they would always give you such hard problems, like you wouldn't even see the resemblance to what was taught in class, and like they would give you this problem, like coding problem, just like a line, just like this paragraph explaining what the problem is, and you're supposed to develop a solution for it. You have to be able to figure out how to solve it in the first place, and then it has to be fast enough, so you have to be able to reason about the speed of your solution, and then you actually have to be able to code it in a bug-free way, and you have to also think about all the corner cases. And there is literally no feedback. Like, there's no one that tells you when you just submit your code and it says wrong. Like, what? That was so frustrating, and you have to be stubborn like a goat that you want to get it. Otherwise you will not get it.
And how important is collaboration with other people? Like, if you hadn't had your best study mates with you, would that have made a big difference?
I actually studied alone most of the time.
Okay.
I think collaborating too much would have been counterproductive, because you really want to develop this feeling on your own. Yeah. It's very easy to get into a situation where someone starts giving you hints for an answer, and for example, I would not want to hear a single hint. Yeah. I want to know that if I get it completely on my own. Yeah. Because, for example, in the exam, it's just going to be me. And I think that helped a lot.
Yeah. So this looks like sounds like a very formative experience. I mean, I can definitely relate to some periods of my life where I've been stressed to a point that has almost made me break. But then when I look back at it, I realize, wow, I've been able to learn so much in a short period of time. So is that now something that you actively look for? Like, when you're learning a new skill, how do you approach that? Are you thinking about, trying to find like similarly hard problems or like challenges that seem very way beyond your reach, or how do you?
Yeah, I think I think the key thing is to be able to motivate yourself. Like, you have to understand at all times why you're doing this. Because it's not a nice experience to go into something that you don't know how to do. You make a lot of mistakes. You don't understand what's going on. It's a shitty experience, if I may use the word. So you really have to understand why you are doing this. You have to have a goal for yourself that you want to reach, and you also need to be able to measure how you get to the goal. Like, if you're getting closer. Yeah. This is the key thing. So for me, what motivates me is if the thing I'm building is going to be immediately useful afterwards. Both in the short and long term. Yeah. Like, if it's a skill that I'm able to use later in life, and the thing I'm building is going to be immediately useful afterwards. Yeah. It's kind of vague, but that usually is enough to push me hard enough. Okay.
Are there other examples where like this philosophy or these measurable goals have like been useful for you to like take up a new skill or hobby?
Yeah. One thing that I remember is, for example, chess. So as a child, I did not play chess, or like we had one course in primary school, and I was really bad at it. I was frustrated, like I didn't know how to play. And when Queen's Gambit came out, for some reason, I was also quite captivated by the show, and I started playing. Also, maybe some people don't know, I did not know this, but I feel like there's a tendency among computer science students to be also chess players, which kind of makes sense. Yeah. Like, there were frequently people that would play chess during lectures, for example. So it also fits the stereotype.
Yeah.
It's a stereotype.
So it's one big puzzle.
Yeah.
Exactly. Students love puzzles, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So I started playing that, and there you can really easily measure your progress. You have this rating, and you know exactly how good you are.
Yeah.
In some way.
Yeah. In one game, you can tell if you're better than someone else.
Yes. Exactly. And the more you play, it's also very logical. I also like logical puzzles as a computer scientist. The more you play, the more you start seeing your progress, the more you start seeing your rating go. That just gives such an unexplainable kick to me that although this is like not really useful or conducive to any of my other goals in life, just for the sake of getting better and this feeling of improving, actually pushed me to play and consume chess content for maybe over 200 hours easily. Yeah, I'm not good at all. Like I'm still really bad, but this is one example.
Okay, so just a random thought, but I wonder if these measurable goals, if they're one of the reasons that athletes in Olympic sports go to such incredible lengths, like, and dedicate themselves so much for one very, very specific task or goal or event, right? It's just because you have that element of measuring it. Like if you do a long jump or something, that you get like that feedback instantly, and you can compare it to everyone else in the world and all your previous results.
Yeah, I think that plays a big role actually. I mean, when you actually get an improvement, you have literally and clearly have gotten better. You know, there's no doubt. Yeah. There's no discussion. Yeah. You know, and when you hold a world record, right, it's undisputable. Right. You know.
Yeah. Whereas if you're painting something, I mean,
exactly.
It's just so subjective.
Exactly. Or like, who's the best football player? It's hard to answer.
Right.
Who's the best 100-meter sprinter? Usain Bolt.
Yeah. There's just no discussion.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I love that analogy. Yeah. So, so you said that now you're taking a step back and focusing on your studies and doing some other projects. Is there anything that you want to mention about projects that you've been thinking about?
Sure. Yeah. So, as I said, I think earlier, I'm focusing on machine learning and AI, and I am particularly fascinated by artificial intelligence. In fact, this was one of the reasons why I chose to study computer science. So when I was in high school still, I saw this video of Mario, the Super Mario character, being controlled by a neural network. And this actually was one of the reasons why I thought this field is so cool and I should get into it. Yeah. And of course, one of the biggest goals of the field is to reach what's called artificial general intelligence, or human level artificial intelligence. Basically, the idea is that while today we already have systems that are really successful at a specific task, for example, chess, or diagnosing some kind of cancer, you know, in very specific tasks, actually these algorithms can get better than humans. There isn't a system that can do many different tasks at the same time. And in particular, what we mean by this is, of course, for example, you can take the algorithm that plays chess, you can take the algorithm that does medical diagnosis. Now you can do both. Yes, but this is not what we mean. For example, as a human, when you start doing when you start playing a new sports, you can leverage all your past experience from all the other sports that you've played, and maybe some things that were not even sports, but just you're able to walk, for example. You can leverage all that past information and quickly improve in this new thing, but an AI would have to learn from scratch. So the goal of AGI is to basically have this one system that can do many tasks and can leverage past experiences for new tasks, and collectively get better at everything at the same time. And there is very little progress in this field, actually. It's surprising when you see all the hype in media that the AI overlords are taking over. I find it very inaccurate. So what I am working on is a particular challenge that is especially catered for this. It's 1,000 reasoning tasks. So what's a reasoning task? A reasoning task, maybe you may have seen something like this before, maybe some of the viewers have seen it before. There are these visual IQ tests. It's usually a 3x3 grid, and you're supposed to complete the pattern, for example. That would be somehow a visual reasoning task. So there are 1,000 reasoning tasks, somewhat in this direction, but more varied, also more having humans as well as machines in mind. And they're all different from each other. And you have a handful of examples for each task. And from a handful of examples, you're supposed to figure out the relationship and then actually give the answer. So why this is hard, just to give some more perspective, is, for example, a classification system that can classify a cat from a dog would typically need tens of thousands of images to get good. Here you have like 2 examples. So you can't just use the same thing. You have to innovate, think on a different level. And you have to be able to leverage your solutions to the past tasks that you were able to solve tasks that are actually completely different. But the building blocks are similar,
Yeah. I mean, it's akin to like when you use pre-trained networks for multitask, right?
Yes.
Like how you take some kind of encoder and you use it for different tasks. But here it's not like the decoders are even different, right? I guess the whole network is multitask.
Yes, yeah. And it's not even clear if the neural network should give you the answer directly or if you should have some kind of other mechanism.
Cool. So you're trying to work on this challenge like in your spare time, but not for something like a product, or it's mostly out of your own curiosity?
Yeah, so this is just to satisfy my own curiosity. So I'm doing a semester project on this. For those that are interested, they can look it up. It's called the Abstraction and Reasoning Challenge. So I'm doing a semester project on this, so I spend like roughly 2 days a week on it now. To see where it goes. I actually wanted to do this for my bachelor thesis. But then I could not convince any professor. Most of them didn't even return my emails. Yeah. And the one that did, he told me this is too difficult. You can't do this. So I had to do something else.
Very encouraging.
Yeah. Now people have gotten more used to the idea, so I get to do it as a semester project. One of the other projects I have in mind, which I hope to start with very soon, is to build a blog centered around data science competitions. As a student myself, when I try to kind of get better at solving data science problems, the resources I find online often outline a particular solution, but they don't really say why this solution in particular, and also like how the author arrived at the solution, which is I think what's really interesting and what I would learn the most from. So another project I had in mind is basically attend competitions myself, see how high I rank, and if there's interest, kind of outline how I got, how I came up with the solution that got me that far. Yeah, so maybe that's something that people might be interested in.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to ask some rapid fire or intuition-based questions for you. The first one is, what's the coolest piece of tech or technology, it can be software or hardware, that you've learned about in the last month or that has come out in the last month?
Yes. So I really like home cinemas. But like, of course, I live in like a 16 square meter room, so I can't have a home cinema. But this is just for the future. My cousin has a projector. Like instead of a screen, he has a projector. And the problem with the projector is like you put it like there, and then it beams all the way across the room, and then like when someone gets in the way, it's like it's not nice. So what I found out like exactly in the last month or so, there are these super close distance projectors that actually project in like 4K.
Wow.
Only 20 centimeters away from the wall.
Oh, but they're super wide angle. Or
yes, it's like angles like this. Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really cool.
Okay, so you would you would basically put it right against the wall there.
Exactly.
On the table.
Just like a TV, but instead of a TV you have this box, that takes not even a tenth of the space.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, it's really, really
and
cool.
you've seen it yourself, like or you've seen a video?
I've seen a video of this and I was really excited about it. It was this particular model, like 4K, like really live colors. Also, like since the projector, it's huge, like it's like the width is like 3 meters or something.
Wow.
Yeah, but it was like $6,000.
Oh wow! And like I guess you have to close off all the lights, right, to get like good kind of brightness and saturation.
Actually, not. No, it's really strong. It's really, really strong. I mean, of course, I think if you don't take any measures, maybe it's not optimal, but you don't have to be in complete darkness or anything like that.
Okay, and it works on all walls.
It does, but of course getting a proper...
like finish and angle.
Yeah, exactly. For example, in Switzerland, there's a lot of these what's called the popcorn wall.
Like with texture.
Yes, exactly, with this kind of texture. And I mean, it's still nice, but the best thing would be to get... it's called the Leinwand in German.
Does the future trouble you or excite you?
Such a nice question. So, I am very excited about my own future, but I am troubled about the direction we're headed in general.
Okay.
It's like even the blind can see this is not the right direction, you know.
Okay. And what things come to mind? Like, what are the most troubling things that are they things that are happening right now, or things that you're imagining?
No, I think more things that I'm imagining will happen.
Yeah.
I think things that happen now are already bad. Like, for example, with the war in Ukraine, tensions in Taiwan, Ethiopia, Iran, you can name many, many more. But what's more is, like, what's even worse is what these kind of indicate. We had a relatively long period of peace in the last century, last 70 years. But now I feel like it's coming to an end, actually. And we might lead tougher lives than our parents did, for example, or our grandparents did.
I hope not grandparents. I wrote a biography of my granddad, who lived through the Second World War in the Netherlands. And I really hope I don't have a tougher life than him, because, man, that was...
No, it's going to be okay. Hopefully not that, but...
What was the last time you were pleasantly surprised about something?
I think it was the day before yesterday. Exactly. A day before yesterday. I have a friend who works at Google. And he invited me over for dinner. And so I never saw the office in my life, so I went, and it was really nice. Like, it's like, you know, they have everything and so on. It's like this kind of almost a stereotypical Google office that you can imagine. That was cool and all. And then at the end of it, he said, we can actually rent Teslas. So if you want, you can go for a drive. And I was like, okay, I've never done it before, actually, you know, like, because Tesla is like so huge now, and I wanted to get the experience. So I thought, okay, let's do it. And so we got in. He actually had this app to unlock it and so on, and we got in, and we got out of the parking lot. We were standing at the first lights, and then the lights turned green, and then just to tease me, he kind of went full throttle. And the car accelerates so fast. It was unbelievable. I was very, very pleasantly surprised by the acceleration on that Tesla. It was ridiculous. Like, it's like when you're in a roller coaster and you start going down. This is how you feel exactly every time you accelerate, if you accelerate that fast, of course.
Wow.
Yeah, but I was not so pleasantly surprised by the self-driving.
Okay.
It actually led us to like near crash situations a couple times. Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. If you could live inside the head of anyone for a day, and this person could be alive or dead, someone who has already died, who?
Wow, that's a good question. Yes, I know. Any Zen Buddhist monk. Preferably a more experienced one.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can kind of guess why, but what is it that you're after? You know, in that day, what do you want to learn?
Right. So, you know, in the Western culture, this is also something that we have in Turkey, actually. The kind of like the worldview is that a happy life is associated with hard work and earning your life and being productive. For example, I started getting into this worldview on my own after I started in university. There would be, I would push myself so hard to study hard and work hard. If there was a day where I just did not feel like studying, I would want to take the day off. I could not even enjoy my day off because of this thought of being unproductive. You know, would bother me so much. I would feel
relatable.
I would feel guilty to have free time.
Yeah.
And this is just a construct, right? This is a totally artificial thing that is just the way people live here. You know, and it's not necessarily the way to live. Yeah. There is this. It's called a koan from Zen Buddhism. It's like a very short story that's supposed to make you think. So two Zen Buddhist monks run into each other at the end of summer. They had known each other for a while, but they hadn't seen each other over summer. So one of them asks the other, "Hey, how was your summer? You know, what did you do? And so the other guy says, my summer was very nice. Like we went to this nearby village and we built a shrine there over the last 3 months, and now it's finished and it's magnificent. And the guy who asked the question says, wow, a summer well spent. And now the other guy asks him, so what have you been up to? He says, well, 1 meal in the morning, 1 meal in the evening, and sound sleep. And the other guy says, a summer well spent.
Nice.
You know, this kind of makes you think. You know, that's why I said the Buddhist monk, because the way they see life is probably so different than we do. Yeah. Yet we are all humans. You know, we are the same creature. Yeah.
So it's a way for you to get out of your construct right now.
Exactly.
Out of the social constructs of this bubble.
Exactly.
That we live in.
Exactly.
Yeah. I can relate to that. I actually would love to see that as well. And I tend to notice that when I'm doing a hike for a whole weekend and I'm totally away from this place and I'm just in nature, I really take a different look at things and perspective on what I'm doing with my life and stuff like that.
Yeah. You see, I mean, we are just animals after all.
Yeah.
You know, one thing that I find really interesting is, by default, we tend to think that we are so much more intelligent than other animals, for example. However, it's really unclear how much of the apparent difference between, for example, me and an elephant comes from my innate superior intelligence versus the culture and the past that I'm building on, basically. Yeah. You know, when you are born as a human, you go to school, you learn everything there. You are part of a society. The entire society makes an active effort to shape you to become the person you are. In comparison, for example, if you were a human and you grow up in the wood by yourself, how smart would you really be? How easy would it be to distinguish you from any other animal? You know, so we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, I think.
Yeah, that's so true. We're standing on the shoulders of many giants. And like, without all the previous work that has gone into forming a civilization like we know it, and education systems and knowledge bases and technology. Yeah, without that, it wouldn't be as straightforward, I agree. My last question is, if an angel dropped $1 million on the table right now for you, what comes to mind? Like, what would you do with? How would you change your life, and what would you invest that in or use that for?
Wow,
really making you think.
Such nice questions to ponder. Yeah. I should have you ask me more questions after this. How would I change my life? I think in the beginning I would not change a thing. At the moment, I'm really happy with the way things are going. Luckily, I'm not doing anything for strict financial reasons at the moment. I'm doing it because I enjoy it, because I think it makes sense in the long term. So I don't think I would change anything in the beginning. I would try to be sensible with it. Maybe get some nice things, like a nice car or something. Maybe get a house for my parents, because $1 million is a lot of money in Turkey. But just put the rest away. Investing, that's also like a different can of worms. Like in this particular climate, like I recently got into investing in stocks actually, and just after I got in, like this like small tech crash has happened. Yeah. So I don't think I would trust an investor with my money. I don't know. I might just keep it in Swiss francs for now.
Yeah. Okay, but by investing, I didn't just mean like investment in stocks. You know, you can invest it in yourself. You can invest it in your businesses. You can invest it into a non-profit.
Yeah. So okay, in this sense, I would not make a significant life decision immediately with the money. As I said, I think I try to think of the things I'm doing in a longer time span, not just the next 5 years, for example, but the next 30 years. Like, for example, how does me focusing on my education right now affect the next 30 years of my life? I think $1 million is a lot of money, and at the moment I'm not in a position to take advantage of such an amount of money fully. it makes a big difference how you actually utilize that resource. So I would be conservative and not try to make a decision with it that can't be reversed later.
Okay.
So I would try to see where my life goes with the current decisions I make, and then maybe come back to it again and decide to do something with it later.
So now that we're at the end of the podcast, I just wanted to let you plug yourself or any places online where people can find more about you or contact you if they're interested.
Okay, yeah, sure. So I'm not super active online. I actually had only a LinkedIn account. I very recently opened a Twitter account, which I hope to use actively. So yeah, maybe we can share for whoever is interested, and anyone can just drop a message, and I'll respond.
Perfect. All right. It's been a pleasure, man. And I look forward to keeping in touch about all your projects and your bright future ahead.
Thanks, David. It was a pleasure for me as well. I'm really excited to see where this podcast is headed. I think it's a great concept, and it was very pleasurable to be a guest.
If you've enjoyed this episode, please follow or subscribe to the show on whatever platform you use. And don't forget to share this podcast with anyone interested in entrepreneurship, university student life, and the rising minds and technologies of the future before they change the world.